It happens when you're alone, late at night, with your phone in your hand, your mind restless, your heart numb. You tell yourself it's just desire, that it's normal, that it's just another outlet before bed. After all, everyone does it. But somewhere between scrolling and the image, between the click and the instant gratification, there's a silence that begins to hurt, an emptiness that doesn't wait for the end to appear. It's already there, even in the midst of excitement, even at the height of fantasy. You think you're seeking pleasure, but deep down you're trying to escape from yourself. If you were honest, deeply honest, you would realize that what you feel is not just lust. It is hunger. Not a hunger of the body, but of the soul. It's a thirst for something that has no easy name, something that pulses inside, but you are afraid to look at it head on. Carl Jung realized this before modern psychology had the courage to face the truth so starkly. He said that men will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid confrontation with their own souls. And that's what happens when you search incessantly for images, fantasies, any form of distraction that replaces presence. Lust in this case is not the problem, it's the symptom. A glaring reflection that something inside you is trying to get your attention. But instead of listening, you run. You run toward what seems like pleasure, but is actually anesthesia. You don't want another body. You want to feel alive. You want to feel that you really exist, that you're being seen, touched, felt. But all you find is a rush of dopamine that disappears the moment it arrives, leaving behind only an echo of what you didn't want to face. And the cruelest part is that this cycle isn't about sex. It's about loneliness, about no longer being able to hear the sound of your own soul without trying to drown it out with stimulation. You chase the illusion of control, the illusion of being desired, the illusion of having power, because you've lost touch with your own truth. Jung would call this an active shadow, a part of you that was never accepted in the right way, and now seeks love in the wrong way. Pornography, empty messages, repeated fantasies, these are all modern ways of running away from yourself. But the more you run, the more the emptiness grows, and it won't go away until you stop and listen to what it's really asking for. Jung didn't ask why someone feels desire. He went deeper, cut through the surface, and touched the real wound. What exactly is this desire trying to distract you from? That's the question few ask themselves, because the answer requires courage. It requires stopping running. Because if you don't, you'll continue to feed the fire on the outside and let your soul wither on the inside. You will continue to desire faces, touch bodies, imagine scenes, and still feel invisible. You will continue to fantasize about what could be, but you will never feel truly complete. Because the truth that no one tells you is this: what you need is not more pleasure. It is more presence. Not more stimulation, but more listening. You don't need another body. You need to return to your own. Feel your breath, your discomfort, your history. The part of you that is still desperately searching outside is actually asking to be found inside. This is the central point of Jung's Red Book, a symbolic, profound work in which he explored the unconscious, not as an enemy to be conquered, but as a sacred territory that needs to be reintegrated. Uncontrolled desire is not a lack of character. It is the manifestation of a fragmented soul. It is a sign that pieces of you have been forgotten, denied, repressed. And when the soul is fragmented, it tries to reunite by any means necessary, even if it is through compulsion, even if it is in the silence of the early morning, with the screen lit up in the dark. That is why Jung saw lust not as a moral flaw, but as a spiritual symbol, a coded call from the unconscious, a a cry for attention to parts of yourself that are dying without care. When desire comes from a broken place, it will never satisfy you, because it is not born of fulfillment, but of absence. You don't feel this because it's wrong, but because you're divided. There is an invisible crack between what you show and what you feel, between what you say you want and what you really crave. Jung wrote, "I must learn that the residues of my dreams are the language of my soul, and it is in these residues that the secret lies. Sometimes lust has nothing to do with the other person. It is just a distorted mirror of your own absence from yourself. You think you want someone, but in reality you are trying to reunite with parts of yourself that you have forgotten how to love. And that is the most painful desire of all, to be whole again. You are not chasing after someone. You are chasing yourself, projected onto someone else's body. And the further you move away from your own essence, the more urgent, irrational, almost violent the desire becomes. You don't just want pleasure. You want relief from an absence you can't name. And so in silence, you open your browser, swipe the screen, search for faces, curves, stories you will never live. You repeat mental scenes like someone trying to relive a forgotten scent, not because you want pleasure, but because you're desperate for a spark of existence. This is what Jung called the seduction of the shadow, not an evil force, but an illusion that dresses your pain in beauty, that transforms what is missing in you into a promise projected onto someone else. You are not seeing a person. You are seeing a reflection of your own neediness. You are seeing your wounds wanting to be touched, your denied emotions trying to breathe. And because you never learned to embrace them, you try to possess them in someone else. But no one, no matter how beautiful, no matter how available, can bear the weight of your forgotten soul. When lust is disconnected from love, it crumbles into dust, because there is no depth. Only need, there is no encounter, only escape. And the more you seek, the more you escape. The emptiness grows, and with it, the urgency to fill it with anything. More bodies, more images, more intensity. Your soul is no longer just hungry, it begs. But you believe that the answer lies in more, always more. Carl Jung would say that this more is the labyrinth of the disintegrated unconscious. You think you are in control, but in fact, you are going around in circles, further and further away from yourself. The cycle continues: stimulus, quick pleasure, fall, emptiness, guilt, and everything repeats itself. Jung insisted, stop asking what excites you. Start asking what has been silenced within you. Because when you reconnect with your emotions, when you listen to your intuition, when you give space to your sensitivity, desire changes form. It ceases to be compulsion and becomes a bridge. It does not drag you down, it reveals you. Lust becomes creation, beauty, vital energy. But for that, you need to get off the surface. You need to stop running and start feeling, because what you call addiction may actually be a cry, a call from the soul saying, I'm still here, but you need to see me. You tell yourself it's just a habit, a relief, a passing distraction. But little by little, it begins to reshape you from within, not with an earthquake, but with small cracks, invisible to the naked eye, but spreading. First, you stop connecting with people on a deeper level. You avoid lingering glances, intimate conversations. Then you start living on the margins of human experience, taking refuge in fantasies that offer control but no depth. When detached from the soul, lust distorts your view of the world. And most dangerously, it distorts the way you see yourself. Jung knew that when sexual energy is ignored as a symbolic language, it not only consumes, it atrophies. The fire that should warm, create, and give direction begins to burn inside, and you feel it. You feel that something is dying inside you, even if you can't name it. Little by little, you stop building. You stop imagining the future. You stop moving with purpose. The vital energy that should fuel your projects begins to be sucked into a hole of compulsion that gives nothing in return. What was desire becomes noise. What was flame becomes smoke. And at the end of the day, you are empty of yourself. Jung called this psychic possession, when a complex takes hold of your psyche and takes the wheel of your life. You stop acting, you become acted upon. And in that case, it is no longer you who desires. It is your loneliness, your wounded child, your history of deprivation repeating itself in a loop. You escape the discomfort with a click. You flee from silence with a scroll. And every time you give in, you reaffirm to yourself that you can't handle what you feel. Lust becomes an automatic response, not a choice. And in the long run, this kills your depth, because where there is compulsion, there is no presence. And what's even crueler, you start to blame yourself, to hate yourself, to believe that you're broken, but you're not broken. You're disconnected. Jung never talked about killing desire. He talked about understanding it, because when ignored, it becomes addiction. But when embraced, it becomes transformation. You weren't born addicted to stimulation. You were born wanting affection, warmth, truth. But when life didn't give you that, you learned to look for substitutes. Only no substitute can sustain the soul for long. No fantasy can fill the absence of self. And that's why, even after everything, you still feel alone. You keep repeating that it's just one more time. But deep down, you know it's not. Because every time you give in, you feel like you're betraying yourself. You promised you would stop, that you didn't need it, that you were in control. But when you realize it, you've fallen into the same cycle again. And the price is not just lost time. It's your integrity that slips away. Your mind becomes more scattered, your sensitivity more numb, your purpose more distant. What once made you feel alive no longer excites you. Nothing seems enough. Not touch, not affection, not pleasure. Everything is fleeting. And your soul, which once only whispered, now begs to be heard. Jung called this archetypal possession, a symbolic energy that hijacks your consciousness. You think you are acting of your own free will, but you are merely an echo of unresolved traumas. The child within you, the one who was never heard or welcomed, now screams, not with words, but with distorted desires. And because you haven't learned to translate this emotional language, the only way you know how is through your body, through consumption, through urgency. But what you want most is not another orgasm. It's another kind of encounter, a symbolic hug that says, "You matter." And while that doesn't happen inside, you try to provoke it outside. But no one can fulfill that role for you, so the cycle intensifies. Relationships become shallow, difficult, unstable. You sabotage yourself before you even create something real. And when depth threatens to emerge, you run away. Because the emptiness has become too comfortable to challenge. You slip. You scroll through your feed. You reopen the same websites. You pretend you don't know where it's going. But you do. Because lust, when it becomes the foundation, begins to corrode everything around it. Your ability to focus, to feel, to create with purpose. The energy that could transform your life is now serving to distract you from yourself. Jung said that the greatest danger is not pain, it is numbness, because those who feel pain are still alive, but those who are numb have stopped listening. They have forgotten what it was like to live with real intensity. And you feel it even if you don't admit it. Because it's not shame that paralyzes you, it's silence. The absence of true connection. The lack of a home within yourself. And as long as you keep saying, "That's just the way I am," you will continue to use lust as a distraction instead of a mirror. Because you are not broken. You just lost the map. But it still exists. And it starts when you stop running. You were never in her body. You were never in that video. You were never in the next message or the next click or the new app. The answer you've been looking for was never outside. The map has always been your soul, but to access it, you need courage. And the first step isn't grand or epic. It's simple. Stay. Stay with yourself. Stay with the anxiety, the discomfort, the longing, the pain. Take a deep breath and resist the urge to escape. In the first few minutes, everything in you will scream. You will want to run away. But if you stay a little longer, you will hear something different. A sacred silence. And in that silence, a voice whispers, "I miss you." It is the part of you that was left behind, the part that never needed to be perfect, just needed to be accepted. That boy who learned to earn affection through performance. That man who confused desire with love. That soul that didn't need to be corrected. It just needed to be seen. Jung never taught repression. He taught integration. Learning to walk with your shadow by your side. Transforming the fire that destroys you into the flame that heals you. And this is done in small gestures. You start by writing, not to please, but to hear yourself. You walk in nature, not to escape, but to find yourself again. You breathe, listen, feel, and you ask yourself honestly, what do I really want right now? Over time, impulses lose their strength, not because they disappear, but because you no longer fear them. You recognize them as a message, a request for beauty, for meaning, for truth. You no longer want to be desired by everyone. You want to be whole for yourself. And when that happens, something changes. You no longer pursue femininity in others. You live it. You feel it. You honor your softness, your sensitivity, your silence. And finally, you no longer need to complete yourself in anyone else, because you are back, silently, in the darkness, in the only place that lust never reached, but where your soul has always waited for you. If this video touched you, like it, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments, what have you really been looking for all this time? Your answer may help others come home too. And if you want to support this work and be part of this journey of transformation, leave a donation of any amount. This keeps this channel alive and allows more content like this to reach those who need to hear this message. Because in the end, what really heals is when we start listening to ourselves again.